The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Boy, let's go. Plenty to talk about. A huge list of official visitors that we will get to, as June is a huge recruiting month, and Caleb Giroux is all about it. I'm joined by Caleb Calhoun today on the program. Josh Heupel is amongst a interesting group. Very good to great coach, yes, but no national title. What does that say about him and the group of coaches that he is alongside? Also, Julian Phillips, 7th ball drafted in 5 years. That's pretty strong. So we'll get to that. And LSU vacating wins. They still do that? Yes, they do. And does that really affect anybody's record or Hall of Fame eligibility? And women in NIL, do they have to be hot? Does that sound sexist, Caleb Calhoun? Good morning. How are you, sir?
Pretty good. I'm not saying they have to. I'm just saying it's an asset that helps.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, this is not us. This is a story that's out right now that we're going to talk about.
No, it's a thing, and I've talked to some Lady Vol supporters about that, and it's a thing. You've got the LSU gymnast who is hot, and she's making $1 million a year, and then you've got other very good players that aren't considered traditionally hot that are just making, a regular Joe's salary. And I remember, I don't know if you remember this. This was about 10 or 15 years ago. The pole vaulter from Stanford who couldn't pole vault at all. She was like the worst at Stanford and in the conference, but she was drop dead model gorgeous. If she is sitting somewhere right now saying, golly, man, if NIL would have been around 10 years ago, because she went viral, and you can actually Google her if you would like to. You might get in trouble with your wife, but she would, as a pole vaulter, she would have made $1 million. So, yeah, you kind of got to be hot. And I don't know that that's fair, but we'll give you our take on that in just a little bit. So a big show lined up, and I'm interested to visit with you, particularly, Caleb, about Josh Heupel here in just a bit. And the question will be, is his career a failure if he doesn't win a national title? Because he's among great coaches who have not won one, but the group's pretty impressive. First, last night, NBA draft, I'm not going to dwell on that, but Victor Wembanyama was number one. For those that don't keep up with basketball, he is a generational talent. He's a once every 20, 25 years type of guy. So that ties me in to a guy named Nico. And we've asked this question before, but we've learned more through spring camp, and we've learned more through my sources that tell me Joe Milton is definitely the guy and no question about it. So we will ask the question about Nico Iamaleava. And the question is today's tough question as we get to that right now. And it's brought to you by our friends at Craft Treats. CraftTreats.com. Use the promo code Off the Hook for 20% off.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Okay, so I am on the Wembanyama train. I think that he is going to win multiple championships. I actually think he's a better prospect than LeBron. But let's don't get caught up on that. Let's talk this. Nico Iamaleava is the highest rated quarterback, arguably in Tennessee football history, to commit to the Vols, and probably the highest rated prospect overall. Now, they didn't really keep track of this with Peyton Manning, so certainly landing Manning, and I would argue Schuler, was as or more impactful to the program. But now that we're having this conversation, and from all the sources that have told me and everything we've heard publicly and across the board, there's no question Joe Milton is going to be the starter until he either stumbles or, God forbid, an injury or something like that. So I look at Victor Wembanyama, and he was drafted last night. Listen, if he doesn't win at least 3 championships, his career is going to be looked at as a failure. Now, he's going to play 16 to 18 years, so we're talking a little bit apples and oranges. But now that we've had spring practice in the rear view, what are fair expectations for Nico Iamaleava? Because they're pretty sky high, but most of the people I talk to think they're reasonable. So I will just ask you this. Give me in a nutshell, and I want this on the message board too. What are fair expectations for Nico Iamaleava?
It's Iamaleava.
Iamaleava.
Sorry.
Let me get Nico to do it again. Iamaleava. Go ahead. I get stuck on that so bad. I'm embarrassed. Here we go. All right. So, Nico, say it for me one more time. As it is Nico
Iamaleava.
Iamaleava. All right. Go ahead.
I got 3 names. And he's got to mirror one of these type of careers. Tommy Frazier, Danny Warfel, Tim Tebow. And I've said and what I've talked about consistently is it's very rare when you have a system coach and a system program that lands the quarterback literally crafted for that system. And that's Nico Iamaleava. Lincoln Riley runs a similar system out west at USC and did it in Oklahoma. He's never landed a Nico. He's turned quarterbacks into Heisman winners, don't get me wrong. He's never landed a quarterback like literally cut out for him. Caleb Williams is the closest he's gotten. Nico Iamaleava is more cut out for the system than Caleb Williams. I think even you would agree with that, Dave, right?
Yes. I would.
Yes.
I would agree with that. Travis says, Dave, how do you still mess up Nico's name? I'm never doing that again. Iamaleava. Go ahead.
So
did I get it that time? I nailed it.
You got it.
Thank you.
You got it. If Caleb Williams, Jalen Hurts, and Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray can all win, not Hurts, but the other 3, those 3 can all win Heisman trophies, and then Jalen Hurts can be propelled into the highest paid quarterback in NFL history, all based on what they did in the system, because Lincoln Riley went to the same system. I think it's very fair to say that Nico Iamaleava should be at a level above all of them. And that's why I name Tommy Frazier, Danny Warfel, Tim Tebow, the 3 quarterbacks that literally went to a system that they were created in a lab to run, basically.
I think he should be better than all 3 of those. I think that those are fair expectations, but I'm going to pin you down a little bit here and ask you in terms of championships, in terms of team success. And if you want to throw Heisman in there, you can, but it seems like Tennessee's just cursed for that. So I've got to vote, but there's only so much I can do, kids. So I want to pin you down on expectations, and let me hear it on the message board in terms of championships. And it's brought to you by Craft Treats, crafttreats.com. Use the promo code Off the Hook, get 20% off at Craft Treats on the chill pills or any product with the chill pills. They can help with your pet's anxiety. They can help with your pet's, arthritis, digestive issues. It's awesome. Crafttreats.com. Use the promo code Off the Hook. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Like, thumbs up right now. I'm going to have the bar lower the most. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that. I think it is win the East. I think those are fair expectations.
There's not going to be an East when he's starting.
There's not going to be an East. Okay. I think it's
go to Atlanta play.
Well, okay. That alters it. You're right. There's not an East. Okay. I think you have to play for an SEC championship. You have to be in Atlanta. So essentially winning the East, being the top 2 teams. However that figures out in the pod system, it's going to be straight up, straight down now. So I would say that he has to do that, and Tennessee has to make the college football playoff twice. And that's basically 2 for 2. Because if he doesn't start this year, the other fair expectation is that he's not around for 4 years, right?
Right.
I mean, he could always pull a Peyton Manning because he loves Tennessee, and that's cool. And the NIL money could be that much. But I think the other expectation, so I've got 3. Plays in Atlanta for a championship. I don't know that he'll overcome Georgia in the next 2 years. May, but I don't know that that's going to happen. I think Georgia's really got it rolling. If they keep speeding rolling, then maybe there's a discipline issue, and that could undermine them. So I'll say that, and you got to make the college football playoff twice, and you should be gone after 3 years. Those are my expectations. And I'm guessing, Caleb, not to put words in your mouth, they may be a little bit lower than what you think. What does our message board think? Go ahead and fill it in and hit that thumbs up button. What are fair expectations?
I mean, I am. It's either a national title or a Heisman Trophy. Without one of the two, it's a disappointment. He's got to get one of the two. And I know, and Dave, I know it's your era, so you're a bit of a victim of what Tennessee did in the 90s when even though it was the best run of the modern era, I think we all agree relative to the recruiting classes, they underachieved. They should have had more than one national title. I mean, it's kind of a failure that they didn't get more than one, given the recruiting classes they got during that time.
That's true. They very well could have won it in 97 and 99.
Right, exactly. And I mean, listening to Fred, if John Chavis doesn't put Leonard Little at middle linebacker, they probably win it in 97 and they can stop the option at that point. And so I think a lot of people in Knoxville and a lot of Tennessee fans that I understand there's that just feeling of the Peyton Manning years, like, oh, how did Peyton Manning not get a national title? But Tennessee was always out-schemed against the best teams those years. I mean, they just were. I'm sorry, but Spurrier would out-scheme Fulmer. Tom Osborne out-schemed Fulmer. No one's out-scheming Heupel. Like, who's out-scheming Heupel? And he's got his quarterback. In this situation, Tennessee is the Florida of the 90s. So Georgia is the Tennessee of the 90s. Because I think Tennessee can out-scheme Georgia, particularly with the Ray Goff version of the offensive coordinator now in Mike Bobo at Georgia.
Old drunken Ray Goff.
So, yeah, I think Tennessee can absolutely out-scheme Georgia and beat them doing that. Tennessee's the Florida. Tennessee is the Spurrier. Georgia is the Fulmer of the 90s.
Message board, fair expectations for Nico would be comparable to Hendon. It is a team sport after all. That's true. And I'm being completely unfair. Well, with wins and losses, it shouldn't be attached to quarterbacks. Super Bowls, national titles shouldn't be attached to quarterbacks, but they just are. I understand they're one of 22. I get that. But if he put up the same numbers as Hendon Hooker and the team had the same success, which is flirting with a college football playoff and what a top 6 finish when it was all said and done, that ain't good enough. I'm sorry. If that's the conversation we're having in 2000s, heading into the 2007 season, and he's moved on and he's the first pick by the Vikings, that's not good enough.
Yeah, particularly when the NIL collective opened the checkbook for Nico. This is the other part that didn't exist back with the other quarterbacks I named. Nico got paid to go to Tennessee. He got paid. We all know it. It's not confirmed, but we all know it's true. This is how it works in the NFL. You get a big contract, your expectations raise a lot. This is why I've always said, Dave, Philly sports fans are my favorite sports fans in all of America. Because I will never forget in 2013, I went to a Phillies baseball game, and Cole Hamels was on the mound, and he pitched a horrible game, and they booed him. And I'm sitting here thinking, Cole Hamels won y'all the World Series. Why are you booing him? My friend who was a big Phillies fan, he's like, yeah, but then we gave him a $100 million contract. We didn't give him that contract because he won us a World Series. We gave him the contract because we wanted him to win us another World Series. And you should be held accountable for what you're paid to do. And Nico, I know it's NIL, so it's not technically a contract. It's basically a contract. He got that money because people wanted him to go to Tennessee. Let's call it what it is. And he got the money so he could deliver for Tennessee. So guess what? He's got to deliver. I'm holding him to a standard.
So yours is pretty simple. National title or Heisman Trophy. Mine is you got to play for an SEC championship, and you should make the college football playoff 2 years. And if you do that, I think you walk away, and Tennessee's a knock on the door every single year type of national title contender. So Nico Iamaleava is able to do that. Did I do better that time?
Yes. Question, Dave. Okay.
Iamaleava.
Iamaleava. Go ahead.
Okay, so what's the best duo of these? And when I mean duo, I mean both equally. Where would Nico and Heupel rank as a duo? And when I mean duo, I mean both equally contributed. There wasn't like one that like mattered way more than the other. So Nico and Josh, compare them to Cam Newton and Gus Malzahn, Tommy Frazier and Tom Osborne, Danny Warfel, Steve Spurrier, Tim Tebow, Urban Meyer. Where do Nico and Josh Heupel rank among them as a duo?
Well, they got to win a title first.
Well, which duos would you rather have based on what you know than Nico and Josh?
Well, I'm an old school run the ball guy. I mean, among that group, I love the physicality of Nebraska. If you want to talk Tom Osborne and Tommy Frazier, I mean, I can't beat that. I mean, I enjoyed watching that. Most people don't. I don't give Werfel as much credit because I think there are probably about 50 quarterbacks across the nation that could have stepped into that role. I mean, he was a great fit, but he didn't have a strong arm. He just did exactly what Steve Spurrier told him. And what was your other trio?
Tebow and Meyer, and then Cam Newton and Gus Malzahn.
I would say of that group, I would say of that group that Tebow was the best fit for any of those. More than Nico, more than even Tommy Frazier, because I think there's somebody else that could do that. Don't forget this too, that when it comes to Tebow, he was a great leader among a team full of thugs. So he had that going for him. I mean, if they don't have that, that team goes off the rails. I mean,
they were killing it for Tebow.
It was borderline off the rails. I mean, you had Urban Meyer cursing. Who's the skinny, slender guy who's on ESPN all the time? He worked for the Orlando Sentinel at the time. He covers the NFL now. Hey, just cussed him in front of cameras right there because he knew that things were going off the rails. And then, something hurts in my chest. I think I need to hang it up.
Oh yeah, leadership I can't question, but I meant like schematically it seemed like it was weird. Urban Meyer goes to Florida, and I mean, could any better quarterback have fallen out of the sky into his lap to run the spread offense than Tim Tebow?
Probably not. It's time for 4 Downs. It's brought to you by Zen Sports. And man, if you haven't checked out Zen Sports or downloaded the app yet, you have got to do that. It is phenomenal. 4 Downs as we continue to talk football and expectations. Josh Heupel up next. Here we go.
4 Downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
Downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, Josh Heupel is one of a handful of college football quarterbacks that has not won a national title. Oh, what did I say?
Quarterbacks. He did win one as a quarterback.
Yes, he did. Coaches. Maybe that teased something I was about to get to. All right, so I got 4 questions for you when it comes to Josh Heupel and the group that he is in, which is a great group, but he hasn't won a national title yet. So I want to remind you that 4 Downs is brought to you by Zen Sports, the new sportsbook in Tennessee, revolutionizing the way you earn sports betting rewards. That means no more deposit bonuses that turn into deposit nightmares on Zen Sports. What you see is what you get with their cash rewards program. You get a lot of cash. How about that? For a welcome bonus, earn an unlimited 5% cash back on your betting volume for your first 15 days when you sign up with the code HOOKED. That's right, unlimited 5% cash back. Anybody that signs up, just let me know, and I'll hook you up with a Hooker shirt. We've got some of those still to give away. But the promo code HOOK, keep betting, keep earning, with up to 3% cash back on your betting volume every month after that, and refer friends to earn a percentage of their betting volume as cash rewards too. Zen Sports bringing the cash back to Tennessee. So if you bet big on sports, you want to be betting with Zen Sports. Zen Sports betting just got better. So let's turn to Cooper Mays, and we'll go ahead and knock that out with first down. Coop
here. First down.
All right. Best coach currently that has not won a national title. Give me a handful of cats we can choose from.
All right, here's a handful. There's Jim Harbaugh, Lincoln Riley, Brian Kelly. Some people will say Ryan Day, but I'm not making him an option because I just don't think he's a good coach.
I agree.
Josh Heupel, Sonny Dykes, Lane Kiffin, and Mike Gundy, Mark Stoops, and Chip Kelly could all be in this conversation.
I think it's clearly Jim Harbaugh because he's got a team to the Super Bowl. That's pretty difficult. So. And I know that's not college. If you took him out of it, it's hands down Brian Kelly for me. So it's Harbaugh for me, a clear number one, Kelly, a clear number two, and then we could argue the rest. Do you like that lineup, yeah or nay?
Oh, no, I like that a lot. I have a hard time leaving Lincoln Riley out because he's basically been a mainstay in the college football playoff. And I know he was always losing in the first round because of defensive issues, but I think that's a little bit unfair because honestly, I mean, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for saying this, but I don't think Oklahoma is a tier 1 coaching job. I think it's a little bit harder to recruit there than people give it credit for. And so I think that's why he took the USC job.
I just can't put him. If I had to pick, he's probably last just because I don't think he has a good grasp of what to do defensively and to build a fundamentally sound program. That's my problem with him. And it will be my problem with Josh Heupel if he doesn't develop that, which I think he's on his way to doing. I'm not suggesting he won't, but you can't just roll out there and be offensive guru and expect to win every single game. You're going to have to win games in other fashions. So
but are you sure the defensive woes don't have something to do with him again at Oklahoma? Again, this was his first year at USC last year. And the year before at Oklahoma, are you sure that doesn't have to do with, isn't it a little bit harder to recruit talent at Oklahoma than we give it credit for?
Yes. I mean, but you can get into Texas. You get a lot of kids out of Texas. I don't think it's as hard to recruit in Oklahoma as, say, a Missouri. I'm just picking a team that's in the geographic region. I think it's kind of like Tennessee. There's not a huge amount of in-state talent, but there's enough nearby states where you should be okay. I don't think that's an excuse. People said that during Dooley and Butch and Bullethead. They would say that it's hard to recruit at Tennessee. Well, it was hard to recruit for General Neyland. You know what he did? He traveled all over the United States of America. You know that. You're the historian. That was one of the first things he said. And Philip Fulmer used to cite it all the time. You can't recruit locally. So get off your duff and go get it done. I never thought that was a good excuse, especially with Derek Dooley, since he didn't go to one high school game in his entire career at Tennessee.
And to be fair, Pruitt did. Pruitt actually did recruit well, as we're seeing.
He did. No, he did. He did. Absolutely, he did. All right, here we go. So what down is it, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
All right, second down. What coach of that group will win one first?
Oh, the homerism in me is going to come out again, according to the message boards, but it's Brian
and for the
Kelly.
record, Caleb has no tie, nor does he root for LSU. He's just high on Brian Kelly. You call it homerism. It's not really homerism.
I know people think it's people think I root for LSU. I don't. I really don't. I look at the facts in front of me, and Dave has covered recruiting more than I have in the past, but I've covered recruiting a little bit, and I've tracked how underrated or overrated state talent is. Louisiana is like a top 6 state, and it's underrated state talent-wise. It's the best job in America, and it's got a good coach. Brian Kelly's winning one next. I'm not saying he's the best of the...
It's scary easy to win there. Caleb and I can get 8 or 9 wins with just our buddies.
It is so easy. And now that they're ahead of the curve in NIL, on top of having a good coach and on top of being in Louisiana... Like, again, I would say probably Jim Harbaugh is the best coach of the group, but Michigan's a much harder job than LSU. It's a much harder job than LSU.
I'm going to say Lincoln Riley, and there are a couple of reasons. Okay, and I'm not a big Riley guy, but I think Brian Kelly, I think he's a little bit more ahead of the curve, and I think he's got a much better quarterback situation, even though we like Jaden Daniels. We don't love Jaden Daniels. Is that fair? I mean, I like him a lot. He might end up in a down year of quarterbacks being the top quarterback in the SEC.
We're
So
talking about a program that won a national title with Matt Flynn and Matt Mock, but yes.
Well, that's true. But and a guy named Joe Burrow who did pretty good. So I would take Lincoln Riley to win one. And I think another factor that helps them is they're going to be in the Big Ten and they're going to be able to run people absolutely out of the arena, Coliseum, stadium, and they're going to get a lot of rest. It's the same thing with Tennessee. And I've talked to Cooper and Jacob about this. It's darn nice to go out there and bust your rear in the first quarter and know that you're going to be able to sit on the sidelines with no helmet. There's a sense of anxiety and relaxation when they take your helmet and they say you're done for the day. And Tennessee is able to do that with some SEC teams, some non-conference teams. I think USC, with the way they run their offense, will be able to do that a lot. Speaking of Cooper, what down is the Coop?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
What of those coaches, which of those coaches will never win one?
Will never win one.
Yes.
Okay, well, since we went a little lower.
Repeat the group you mentioned.
Okay, so I named Jim Harbaugh, Lincoln Riley, Brian Kelly, Josh Heupel. You can name Ryan Day and James Franklin if you want to. Neither one of us are going to name them. And Sonny Dykes, Lane Kiffin, and Mark Stoops, Mike Gundy, and Chip Kelly.
Lane Kiffin's never going to win a national title. Neither is Sonny Dykes.
No,
sorry,
neither one of them. Neither is
and
Mike
really
Gundy,
what Sonny Dykes did last year at TCU with that team is almost as impressive as winning a national title. I mean, so he's got that on his resume forever. Travis giving me a hard time. USC is never going to beat a good Georgia, Alabama, or even Tennessee. We'll see. My theory on that is, Travis, as a retort, I think that USC will be able to pick up I'm just throwing this name out there randomly, like the Manti Te'os of the world, who was from Southern California. I think he'll be able to pick up enough of those guys on defense, and the offense will be really good. SoCal, man, there are pockets where they do love football. Now you got to look, but there are places. So that's why I went with Riley. But you could have said the same thing about Brian Kelly.
Right, exactly. And what we're laughing about that is we both agree Harbaugh. If you named Harbaugh, Brian Kelly, and Lincoln Riley, we would agree Harbaugh's the best of the three. He's the least likely to win a national title. If I had to pick among those three who would never win one, it'd be Jim Harbaugh because of where he is. I think he should leave Michigan, but that's just me.
Well, he's also the most likely to get fired. He can't leave Michigan. He's reached out to every NFL team that's had even a sit-on vacancy, and nobody will take him. I think he's the most likely of that group to get fired, and I don't think it's close. He's tough to get along with. He's flirting with the NFL each and every offseason. Tennessee fans, how would you feel? LSU fans, we got a lot of LSU fans and South Carolina fans for whatever reason. How would you feel if Brian Kelly or Shane Beamer is flirting with the NFL each and every year? Now, Philip Fulmer used to do that, but I kind of give Philip Fulmer a pass because he wasn't making life-changing money in the 90s. He wasn't making generational wealth. So push. I don't blame you. But nowadays, everybody's making generational wealth. And Philip Fulmer was also looking out for his assistant coaches. So I don't really hold that against Philip Fulmer. I thought that was leverage. Nowadays, if all of your coaches are making $750,000 plus and you're bringing home $6 million and you're flirting with the NFL every single year, I guarantee you there are people at Michigan that are dying to make a change.
And also, right now, Michigan has the second-rate recruiting class for 2024, but they've always flirted in like the 10 to 20 range. You don't think Harbaugh flirting with the NFL is the reason they haven't been flirting with top 5 until now? I mean, I guarantee you that's going around to every other high school kid because right now is lightning in a bottle. There's a lot of negative press about Ohio State because Ryan Day, I think we're all starting to question whether or not he can get it done. So Michigan is uniquely positioned, right, Dave, to go into Ohio and poach a lot of those kids right now. And it's going to be harder for them to do that if Jim Harbaugh keeps flirting with the NFL.
Well, and Jim Harbaugh, too, is like almost 60.
Yeah.
So he was like spending the night with punters at one point in recruiting. Do you remember that story? He spent the night with a guy. They had a sleepover. so he could land a dude. Yeah. Not the way I go about it. You know, when I wanted to work with Caleb, I didn't say, hey, do you think the missus would mind if I hit the couch and we could play Yahtzee all night?
And and at least I'm of age. I mean, punters are, high school recruits are. Is this the Neverland Ranch? Isn't that in Michigan?
I don't know. I'm really not sure if it was a punter, but it sounds better. You can Google that. Another Vol drafted into the NBA. I think that's a pretty strong sign of player development. We give Rick Barnes a hard time quite a bit, but credit him for getting another Vol into the NBA. Want to discuss that. First, though, Jacob Warren has a very important message for you. And what is that, Jacob? No, let's go with Coop.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
That's right. Thank you, Coop. And I was looking at the analytics. So I like to share everything. We're a family here. I was looking at the analytics, and our notifications aren't as high as they should be, and that's my fault. So will you take 1 second and please turn those notifications on, because we got Celebrate 98, a Travis coming up very soon that played running back for Tennessee. Maybe you can guess which one. And also Spencer Riley, my first favorite interview of all time. He will be next week. And we got a little Dante Stallworth action. So you got to turn those notifications on. Why Rick Barnes deserves an awful lot of credit in 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
And Craving Wings South North Shore location, where we've heard people say that you can get the best wings in East Tennessee. Pero ¿quién es este? El número 87, Jacob Warren.
I'll just do 6 of my sauce 87, please.
Imposible, señorita. Dale 6 más. Look at these wings. Perfectas, deliciosas, fantásticas.
Man, I don't know what you're saying, but it sounds awesome. How do you say fresh, never frozen in Spanish?
Frescas, nunca congeladas. Make your way to Craving Wings and get you 6 más.
But what was funny about Cadis, we were a full continuum of care at that time. We had detox, we had inpatient, we had outpatient. So we were doing a lot of the things that we do now. But now we just do them so much better. It's really a simple program, but we're complicated people. I am what I am, and now I got to do something about it.
You can take your life back. Call Cadis today.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn at cctis.com.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassey Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassey, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassey's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassey Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
Our family has been creating jewelry since 1986, each piece unique with a story all its own. I'm Rick Terry with Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. I'm a jeweler, and I want to be your jeweler. We're grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler. My family and staff look forward to serving you. So please come see us. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut and downtown on Gay Street, right next to the Tennessee Theater.
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren, asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
Message board question: if we considered the negative that Milton balls out the whole season, Nico frustrated and transfers to Tennessee. Might be an issue if Joe Milton had 2 years, but I think that Nico is ready to sit a year, learn, get better. I don't think that's a major concern. Now, if Nico's not happy or something else happens, the Merklinger kid ends up being the next Peyton Manning, then yeah, I mean, he could transfer. I know jerseys are available now with names on them because of NIL, but don't go buying a bunch of them of anybody, because with this transfer portal, who knows, Caleb? I mean,
I stopped buying jerseys of players I liked years ago in the pros because, just spoiler alert, when the Grizzlies drafted OJ Mayo, I thought he was the next Dwayne Wade and going to be our sexy superstar, like the flashy guy that like carries the team. And I bought an OJ Mayo jersey. Oh boy, did I get that wrong.
That's funny you say that. I liked OJ Mayo a lot. And there's another rule. I think you should always, if you're going to wear jerseys of somebody older than you. That's my rule.
Yes.
Like I would love, like I found, by the way, we're bringing on Sports Treasures in North Knoxville. And we're very excited about that. I'll tell you more as we go along, but they had a vintage, and it was almost like a sweater, Roger Staubach. And it was like authentic, and you could wear it on a cold day. And I still regret buying that. So I'm going to find out if my friend Zach at Sports Treasures there in North Knoxville can help me out, and we can get one of those. So Tennessee did have a player drafted in the NBA draft. Everybody wanted to talk about Victor Wembanyama. And by the way, the Miller kid from Alabama, what was the debate about him going second? I mean, there are some guys that I can watch in 5 seconds, and I know he's that good. I mean, literally, I saw him last year, and I was like, that guy, if not for the Wembanyama year, is the number one pick in the NBA. So I don't know what that debate was about. You got Scooter Henderson, who just, I thought, didn't you think Miller was an easy number 2 pick from Alabama?
Yeah, I did. I'm not as high on Wembanyama as you are, though, because again, he can't pass to save his life, and that's a really, really, really crucial part of playing the game. If you're a scorer from the wing, Kevin Durant, it's what's plagued him his whole career. How many super teams has Kevin Durant formed, and he's only won 2 rings because Kevin Durant can't pass, and that's kind of
he'll win 5 championships.
I'm just saying, Wilt Chamberlain couldn't pass either. And he broke every record in the world and only had 2 rings to show for it.
I don't know that Bill Russell could pass.
Bill Russell wasn't the offense didn't go through Bill Russell.
Okay.
That's the offense.
All right.
Yeah.
Way off topic. Julian Phillips, 7th Vol drafted in 5 years. That's a surprising stat from Tennessee basketball, isn't it?
It's a very surprising stat, actually. Particularly if you go through history. I think Tennessee had a run. I mean, we're talking from the mid 90s until from 2002 from 2003 to 2011. I don't think they had one player drafted, not one, which is crazy to think about.
It is crazy to think about. So let's take a moment and ask ourselves the question. And Caleb is actually more anti Rick Barnes than he is pro LSU, and that is Rick Barnes underappreciated? I mean, he's developing talent. Players look at that. I mean, who cares what they do in the NBA if you're a Tennessee fan, right? Players, I think, want to stay and play for him. I don't think we've ever questioned if they played hard. They played tough on defense. We can question a lot of things about Rick Barnes, but is he a little bit underappreciated?
No, he's what we knew he was. Rick Barnes is the David Cutcliffe of basketball. You will be developed for the NBA if you play for Rick Barnes. If you want to develop for the NBA, if you're a 3-star fringe, 4-star, right around that area, and you go play for Rick Barnes, after 3 years, he'll develop you into an NBA prospect, aka Grant Williams, Admiral Schofield, people like that. Where he comes up short a little bit is schematics and a little bit of X's and O's, because he sticks to a certain style and a certain philosophy. But if you are somebody who wants, put it this way, if you want Tennessee basketball to be a school that looks out for the welfare of the players that come through the school and puts them in the best positions going forward, which I guess theoretically is what college is about anyway, Rick Barnes is your guy. If you want Tennessee basketball to win a national championship, he's not your best guy.
Let me stop you on one thing you said. David Cutcliffe wins a championship if he's the head coach of the programs with the support like Rick Barnes has had. If he's the longtime coach at Texas and Tennessee, I believe at some point David Cutcliffe, over the course of a 25-year career, wins a national title.
Do you think David? He wasn't that big of a recruiter, though, was he? From what I understood, he wasn't that dedicated to recruiting.
It wasn't asked to be. He was just asked to get the quarterbacks. It was a really unique setup in that Fulmer did most of the recruiting. But no, I do think he wins a champion. You got to remember, he was in a pro style sense, he was pretty far ahead of the game and what he was doing, and the jab step and the way he would train quarterbacks to look guys open. I think he would have won a national title. But
I think Barnes could win a national.
No,
I think Barnes could win a national title. I'm just saying he's not like, okay, you're starting a program in the 90s and you want to win a national title. Are you hiring Steve Spurrier or David Cutcliffe?
Well, I'm hiring Steve Spurrier.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm hiring Steve Spurrier. I mean, that's the Mona Lisa versus somebody in an.
Are you hiring Tom Osborne or David Cutcliffe? Oh, come on, Dave. Come on.
Oh, okay, Tom Osborne. Tom Osborne. But
are you hiring Josh Heupel? And now, are you hiring Josh Heupel today or David Cutcliffe back then?
Okay, that's an interesting question that you went there. I would hire David Cutcliffe if they're both coordinators at the same spot. Heupel coming out of Oklahoma, Cutcliffe coming out of Tennessee, and they're both there on the table, same age, no health issue. I would hire Cutcliffe.
I think my money would be on Heupel to win a national title as a head coach before Cutcliffe. Cutcliffe is solid schematically, but it was about player development with Cutcliffe. Heupel doesn't necessarily, this isn't a knock on Heupel, this is a scheme. Heupel doesn't necessarily prepare you for the NFL as a player. The same way, by the way, I'll give you, to take it back to basketball, Rick Barnes versus Bruce Pearl. Rick Barnes is developing Tennessee players better for the NBA. That's why you have 7 players getting drafted in 5 years. Bruce Pearl didn't have anybody get drafted his whole run at Tennessee because Bruce Pearl ran a system. Now, the system made Bruce Pearl more successful than Rick Barnes, but it did not prepare players for the NBA the way Rick Barnes prepares players for the NBA.
Now, while I get beat up on the message board, and by the way, Fred can't join us today because he's actually working. He is in a golf tournament, T. Martin's golf tournament, so he's lining up Celebrate 98 guests. So we gave him the day off. So sorry about no Fred today, but he apologizes. I'm not saying that I would be right, but just given the resumes at the time, I would go with Cutcliffe.
Okay, but that wasn't the question, though. Now you're cheating and you're changing the rules. Okay, I'm saying, right, based on what you know right now about both coaches, who would you rather be the head coach, Josh Heupel or David Cutcliffe?
What I know right now in June 2023, Josh Heupel.
Yes, because even though you would trust David Cutcliffe to develop quarterbacks for the NFL better than Josh Heupel. And I would too, but you would still hire Josh Heupel because Josh Heupel's better schematically.
I don't think you give David Cutcliffe enough credit for what he did in turning. There are a lot of coaches, and Josh Heupel may be one of them. I don't know, but that would look at an offense that is built to run the football and say, heck no, I'm going to throw it all over the park. Steve Spurrier was that guy. I think you're underestimating and undervaluing David Cutcliffe going from 97 to 98 and saying, I'm going to be a run the football team. That was against his innermost feelings about the game that he grew up playing.
David Cutcliffe was an amazing adapter to talent. I agree. He was a good offensive coach, X's and O's wise. He was not the cream of the crop, though. That's what I'm saying. That's why he's where Rick Barnes is. I think Rick Barnes is good, X's and O's. I just don't think he's the cream of the crop. I mean, X's and O's, like, out scheming. I never put Cutcliffe on Spurrier's level. I never put him on Heupel's level. You know, I actually, looking back, maybe I would put him on Osborne's level because I don't think Osborne's really out schemed anybody. He just wasn't it the same play every time with Osborne? Just the quarterback makes the decision on whether or not to pitch it or run with it.
Well, and little clarification, I'm talking cut after 98. Remember when he went to Ole Miss? So if I'm Ole Miss and I got Josh Heupel and I got David Cutcliffe sitting there as Heupel coming from Mizzou, this is before UCF, okay? Then nobody has head coaching experience because that's a big factor. Then I'm going Cutcliffe. You would too. Are you telling me?
Based on that resume, no, based on that resume, yes, I'm going Cutcliffe. But I mean, I was still. There would be remember this. I know it was the 90s, a different time, but there's a bit of a red flag. Don't you think that Cutcliffe was offensive coordinator for 6 years before he got a job? It took him 6 years before he got hired as a head coaching job. And I think personally, people watched those Tennessee-Florida games and they thought Tennessee was so far behind Florida in scheme that I think that was held against Cutcliffe.
I'll tell you why that is. You want me to tell you why that is?
Yeah, go ahead and tell me.
First, I'll tell you AndyMasonRealEstate.com. AndyMasonRealEstate.com will save you thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. He's my realtor. He should be yours. Tell him Off the Hook Sports sent you and that you want the best service and the best prices in the biz because that's what he offers. Over 40 years of experience. AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Fantastic realtor in East Tennessee. It's because Philip Fulmer was such a great offensive mind.
That's the funniest joke you told all day. That's the best joke you told all day.
Might be, maybe in my career. There's a chance of that.
Gosh.
No, I think David Cutcliffe got passed over a lot because I do think Philip Fulmer is highly respected as an offensive line coach. And you got to think too, back then it wasn't about developing the Hendon Hookers or the Peyton Mannings or whatever. It was about putting a fantastic offensive line together. Back then, we thought that I mean, I said it in jest and I was joking, but if you had a guy that could put together an incredible offensive line and was a great recruiter, that was considered a great offensive coach. And Philip Fulmer did that. And he worked like heck. I've got that drop somewhere. We worked like heck. And he worked like
How many times did you hear that, Dave, in a press conference?
He did the hand pat.
Oh, yes, the clap. Oh, my gosh.
Some people hated the clap. Well,
I actually didn't.
Yes. Yeah. People with my last name hate the clap, I would imagine.
Oh, Lord. I didn't mind the clap. I felt like that was where Fulmer was at his best, where he knew how to keep his.
You just said I didn't mind the clap, but that's okay.
No, I said I didn't.
Right, just a penicillin shot and you're okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Good
I did not mind
Fulmer's Caleb.
I did
Completely off the rails.
I did not mind Fulmer's clapping because I felt that he was doing a good job trying to keep his players composed with Philip Fulmer was very much the team. Philip Fulmer very much lived by Nealon's second maxim. If at first the brakes go against you, don't let up. What is it? If at first the brakes don't go your way, put on more steam.
Right. And I'm a big fan of being, as a parent, of being supportive when things aren't going well and maybe being a little bit harder when things are going well. So I got what he was doing there and it didn't bother me, but man, it just absolutely drove some people crazy. Rocky Top Tom, nice enough to say that as long as it doesn't progress, the clap is not the end of the world. So that's all he was doing. This is
gonna go way off the rails.
Al Capone would argue that. Okay, so going back to something we said earlier before we move on, D said Nico can't win a Heisman if his offensive lineman can't block. He can't hold on to the football for the running backs or catch the ball for the receiver. So we were talking about expectations earlier for Nico, and the simple fact is it is a team game. It's not fair. But ultimately, Bryce Young in the NFL is going to be judged if he wins Super Bowls as a quarterback. Tom Brady is judged as the best ever. When you brought up great points why Peyton Manning should be considered the best ever, because I do think he changed the game much more than Tom Brady. But at the end of the day, titles, team success shouldn't be a quarterback stat, but it just is. And I think that Nico, that's going to be tied to him. I mean, guys, if he doesn't win the SEC East, if Tennessee I think this is the worst case scenario. Tennessee stumbles into the college football playoff once and he doesn't make it. Let's say he plays 3 full years after this year and they only make the college football playoff once. I don't think anybody's looking back at the Nico era saying this is a great thing. mean, the expectations are different than the Joshua Dobbs of the world, right?
Much different. Much different. And by the way, that's another quarterback that is actually a pretty good fit for Mike DeBoer's system, but then, things kind of went off the rails. But talk about single-handedly keeping a coach afloat. There's Josh Dobbs with Butch Jones, and I'm going to say it. Josh Dobbs was Tennessee's modern-day Condrich Holloway, who kept Bill Battle's job afloat. Bill Battle would have been fired years before if Condrich Holloway wasn't there, delaying the fall off of the program.
Yeah, I wonder if Butch Jones has ever called Joshua Dobbs and said, "Hey, do you care to come by Arkansas State and help me recruit?" I'm not even joking. I guarantee you he has that type of gall. I guarantee you he's called and he said, I developed you as a quarterback and did a great job. When in all reality, we all know that Joshua Dobbs was paddling his kayak upstream. I mean, that was, for him to be something today, in my mind, still Caleb is amazing given the coaching he had.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. I will never forget Joshua Dobbs, his last regular season game. He won the bowl game, but he lost his last regular season game at Vanderbilt, which cost Tennessee a shot at a New Year's Six bowl. And I will never forget the broadcaster. Dobbs completed his first 15 passes in that game. And Tennessee lost because the secondary couldn't stop anybody. And you finally started to see Dobbs get frustrated in the fourth quarter. And I will never forget the broadcaster, and I don't want to call him out, and I wouldn't anyway, but I don't know his name anyway. He kept saying, just these leadership things of Dobbs. You see this here, these leadership issues. And I thought that was the most ridiculous thing because I thought Joshua Dobbs was a great leader. And I think just at that point, I think it would wear anybody down. I don't care how great you are. Eventually you get worn down by the ineptitude surrounding you if you keep trying to carry them.
And on the message board, D says he could be Fran Tarkington great or Dan Marino or Dan Fouts. You're absolutely right. And I would hope that we would remember him like that. But a lot of people won't. A lot of people still, what's the first thing out of their mouth if they want to say something bad about Peyton Manning? Because he had two things. He had the Florida thing and he had the clutch thing, right? A lot of
the clutch thing was stupid for anybody who did. It's only for people who didn't follow college football that didn't.
I agree.
Clutch.
And you win 2 Super Bowls and that goes out the door. You got to be somewhat clutch to win 2 Super Bowls. But the Florida thing still comes out there. Like how many times did he beat Florida? And now he gets kind of misremembered as he beat them once. No, he didn't.
And by the way, also lazy because no one ever brings up the fact that Tennessee's defense gave up 41 points and a half to Florida in 1995. You probably remember that game, right? That they lost 62-30, whatever. Peyton Manning spotted them a 30-14 lead. And the defense gave up 48 unanswered.
Absolutely. All right. So I think we've gotten completely sidetracked and have done 2 segments on Nico in June, which is fine with me.
And then another one on David Cutcliffe, Rick Barnes, and the clap.
And the clap. Okay. The thing that I want to ask you next, if it meant vacating wins, are you cool with Tennessee winning the title, even if they have to vacate it a couple of years? Because LSU is vacating wins. I didn't even know that was a thing anymore. It'll be the age in 2 minutes.
Family has been creating jewelry since 1986. Each piece unique with a story all its own. I'm Rick Terry with Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. I'm a jeweler and I want to be your jeweler. We're grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler. My family and staff look forward to serving you. So please come see us. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut and downtown on Gay Street, right next to the Tennessee Theater.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare. With all that sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassey Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassey, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Bassey's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Bassey Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
These mountains hold and defend a spirit far better than moonshine. A drink that holds flavor that becomes necessity. A hard cider made and relished by folk who are as hearty as they are legend. A refreshment that can only be found in one place. With a taste that makes you say, give me 3 bottles of the good stuff. Tennessee Cider Company, where necessity can be found.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
What the H today brought to you by Bassey Lawn and Garden, Man Alive. It's worth the drive. So LSU has to vacate wins that could cost Les Miles Hall of Fame eligibility. Does Les Miles belong in the Hall? That's a whole different question. So what the H is, are they still vacating wins? Does anybody keep track of that anymore? Does that matter? I mean, it seems so silly to me. The NCAA, I mean, for goodness sake, I mean, unless you're going to walk into LSU's facility, and they do have a tiger there, so be careful with that. Unless you're going to, have you ever thought about having a wild tiger as a mascot that actually lives on campus? It's very odd and shows how much we love football. But anyway, I mean, it's very strange to think about. I don't know. Is this still a thing that the NCAA vacates wins? I mean, would anybody in this show that's listening say that, oh, I wouldn't want to take a national championship for my favorite team if it was vacated 5 years later? I mean, who wouldn't say that?
Well, it depends on the way it's vacated.
And let me just say this. With the exception of like a Penn State sort of thing. Okay. With that exception. All right. Taking out crimes against humanity. Would anybody say, I'll take a national championship? You can vacate it in 5 years. I would.
I mean, I would too. With the caveat, as long as this isn't part of a probation that includes bowl bans later. So, for instance, USC had to vacate their 2004 national title, but they also got a 2-year bowl ban. They still haven't recovered from that.
I'd take it.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I wouldn't because you take it because then you look back on a national championship that doesn't count, but then you also have 20 years of futility. I mean, these probations wreck programs. These bowl bans do. There's just no denying that they do.
Well, and they wrecked Alabama for a while too, so nobody's untouchable when they got hit in the early 90s with the Antonio Langham. So pragmatically, you bring up a good point, but it's been 25 years since Tennessee won a national title. It was 47 before that. So and right now we're hearing absolutely not, but that really surprises me. I mean, if you could win a national championship this year and in 5 years they vacate that and they give you a 2-year bowl ban, would you just take it?
No, not with the bowl ban. No, I would not. Sorry. It has too much of a negative impact on the long-term program. For the national championship to not count, you don't want to sacrifice the long-term future of a program for a national championship that doesn't count. Now, maybe for a national championship that counts, you do, but not for one that doesn't count.
But when you write something, and this came up last year, I was writing something about Tennessee, Alabama. So that 92 game was vacated and technically 93. So Tennessee won, but they didn't win. I mean, you didn't write. Well, if you wrote about that, and you wouldn't this year, it's a series of streaks. Tennessee broke the streak in 93 because Alabama had to vacate a win. You wouldn't write that.
No, and it's funny when they count that because, like, those 1995 Tennessee football players weren't celebrating like they had just beaten Alabama 2 years before. They were celebrating the fact that they beat them for the first time in 9 years that night. And it was very clear. I mean, so You're absolutely right. Look, I know this from firsthand because the Memphis Tigers had to vacate their Final Four with Derrick Rose in 2008, the one where they blew the 9-point lead in the national title game.
Yes,
and
Captain Free Throw.
Yep, my best friend at the time was like, "Well, they may say it didn't happen, but I remember crying a lot and getting really drunk out of depression. So can I get that night back if it didn't happen?"
Okay, so how about this on the message board? I'd rather Monty Kiffin's son, Elaine, come back and hire Jones, Lyle, as his offensive coordinator than to win a title and have it vacated. That's pretty strong.
That's not that strong because, quite honestly, I'd be fine with that because Lane Kiffin would never let Butch Jones call a play. So, okay, fine, hire Jones as offensive coordinator. Lane Kiffin's the one really calling the plays.
Yeah, he'd just be the guy in charge of bad haircuts. So if anybody wants a bad haircut, just go to Butch. Go to Lyle, and he'll hook you up. He's got this guy that'll do it for $5.85.
Exactly. Do you think Lane Kiffin would let Butch Jones near the football at all?
No. He didn't let his own brother-in-law near Jonathan Crompton the last half of the season. That's why Jonathan Crompton was so much better in the senior year.
And he also didn't let Jim Chaney call the plays, which he might have been proven right on something with that. But
yeah, and I asked somebody about that, and I said, it just seems like that Lane spent a lot more time with Jonathan because that's when practice was open than he was previously. And the guy told me, he said, we don't want that out because it would make David Reeves look really bad. Oh, that's my job, is to uncover the truth. So If you read that way back then, I kind of wrote around it. But since it was an off-the-record comment, but it was from somebody that definitely knew, let's put it that way.
So
David Reeves was phenomenal at lining up hostesses. That should have been his job. He should have been the HC, hostess coordinator.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so question with these vacating wins, because the story that's interesting to me is Les Miles loses Hall of Fame eligibility because of this, unless he comes back and coaches, which no one's going to hire him again because of the toxic situations that happened at Kansas and LSU.
I don't even know what happened at Kansas. What happened at Kansas?
He was fired from Kansas because of the toxic stuff at LSU, because there was some harassment things that happened at LSU that I don't think involved him, but I think
how do you win a national championship and get fired at Kansas?
Because he had to. There was a massive some sort of sexual misconduct scandal that happened at LSU. Miles wasn't a part of. I don't believe Miles was a part of it, but it sounds like he let it happen.
Okay, so your question is, does it cost him getting in the Hall of Fame?
Well, it does cost him, but my question is, should he have even been a Hall of Fame coach before this?
Well, yeah, if you win a national title, you're a candidate. And I'm a big fan of taking more people, and I'm totally ripping this off Dan Patrick. I would do like different levels. Like I would do an elite Hall of Fame, and then you make it. They call it the Hall of Good, but I would have different levels. And because we're getting to the point where as we get older, there are going to be so many people that are coming into Hall, and they're great players that aren't making the Hall, and in a lot of sports. I was a big proponent of Everson Walls, a longtime defensive back for the Cowboys. He should have made the Hall of Fame years ago, and he had to wait till like his last chance, and I think it was last year. So, yeah, you win a national title in football, aside from crimes against humanity, you should, I don't care if you pay players or not, you should make it to the Hall of Fame.
It's a 2-loss national title, though. It's the most asterisk national. Remember what he said? I still can't get over the fact that the voters bought this when he said, "We haven't lost a game in regulation all year." And voters literally
haven't lost a game in regulation.
Yes, because they lost 2 games in overtime. And voters bought that, and they're like, you know what? You're right. Let's put him in the national title game. Now, to be fair, at the same token, if Oklahoma State doesn't blow a 24-7 lead on a Friday night to Iowa State in 2011, Les Miles has 2 national titles, because then LSU plays Oklahoma State for the national title rather than a rematch with Alabama, and we know they would have beat the brakes off that Oklahoma State team. But
Travis asked a good question that I've been actually kicking around in my mind. The talent gap. We've seen such a different talent gap in 50 years. Are we going to see another talent gap, or are we maximizing what humans can do? Because I'll tell you this, when I talk to Jacob and Cooper, both on and off the record, I don't mind sharing this because I don't think they would care. they so care about their bodies, and they do not, and I believe this wholeheartedly, that to be elite, you have to care about your body, and you're not going out and partying like guys did in the 90s. I mean, we would see players out partying. You know, I don't think, I think we're about to maximize what a human can do. Now you'll have your freaks like Victor and Wembanyama. You'll have your freaks, but aren't we close to maximizing what people can do?
Yeah.
Does that mean it's harder to get in the Hall of Fame or easier?
I think it's going to be the same. And here's why. And this isn't prisoner of the moment. Go back to 1950 and compare it to 1900 and football and baseball. The talent gap there wasn't much of a talent gap between 1950 and 1900. There is between 1950 and now. Here's what happened. This is very clear what happened. Once sports got integrated, the competition, when all the competition is in one pool, you start to maximize the talent more. When it's separated, there's not as much pressure to have maximized talent because things are separated. Do you know what I mean? Once it's all in one pool, it's the pressure becomes to maximize your talent as much as possible. I think that's what happened. I think integration's already happened, so you can't integrate again. So I think that's what they did.
And Smoky Mountain Red brought up pitchers keep pitching at higher speeds, but a lot of parents are going in and going for elective Tommy John surgery at 14 years old, which those parents should be beaten. The thing about Les Miles, to me, he's a Hall of Famer. You win a national title, you're a Hall of Famer. But the funny thing about him is, have you ever been around somebody that thinks they're cool that they're really not?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say that thinks they're smart, but they're really not. But okay.
I don't know that he's thought hard enough about it to think if he's smart or not. But I'll tell an Uncle Dave story. They sent me to West Virginia one time to cover the LSU West Virginia game. And afterwards, he is just fired up about beating West Virginia. Fired up. And I think I told you this before. One of the trainers talked to his wife, basically saying, where would you like your bags put? And he is so on cloud nine after beating West Virginia. He's like, hey, don't you be hitting on my wife. Scares everybody to death, including his wife. And he goes, oh, I'm just kidding. Now, what do you got for me, Dave? And I'm like, it's like one of those jokes that he just wasn't funny. Everybody was uncomfortable and felt really weird. And it felt like that's the feeling around LSU's program all the time.
Yeah, he was very awkward. Remember that time where he was like, that senior day, he's like, when you see the seniors, you give them a big kiss on the mouth.
Travis pointing out PEDs. No, I don't think PEDs would help Les Miles get in the Hall of Fame. PEDs could make it different. But man, at some point, PEDs have to get as good as they can get. I'm of the belief that everybody's taking everything, not necessarily at the college level, but at the pros. I think that the money is on the side, not of enforcement, but of advancing technology. And that's why you saw all the Balco stuff, because it's the players that can pay for it. So it wouldn't surprise me if we had another steroid PED scandal in something
and
else.
There's a different type. So HGH is the more common PED now rather than steroids. And steroids was much more dangerous, but HGH is still helps you recover from injuries faster, basically. And so it kind of keeps you in peak physical condition. Still not good for your body, don't get me wrong. But I think...
Well, I'll let my doctor determine that very soon.
Well, no, I mean, it's no. As you're older, as you hit a certain age, it is prescribed often for men. But like when you're taking it at 20 or 18 and taking it long term, yeah.
So let's go ahead and do a full medical review of Dave Hooker. Anybody on the message board on testosterone, and would you recommend it? Because I'm doing pretty good, but I've thought about it. Basically, I've heard that it helps you sleep. That's what I've heard. Yeah, that's the first thing everybody at the gym tells me is that, man, you will sleep so much better. And I absolutely can't sleep at all. All right, I got an NIL question for you. And I want to say this as nicely as I can.
Speaking of feeling testosterone.
Yes. Try. Oh, cool. Oh, man, mixed reaction. We've got I am and I love it. And I was and I had a bad reaction. Oh, guys, We got to be stronger than 50-50. I mean, we don't even want to be 70-30 on me and injecting hormones into my body. All right, so I'm sorry, ladies. You got to be hot to get NIL money. And this is a big thing. And I know that the Lady Vols, I know that they've gotten frustrated by the lack of NIL money. You know, you're talking a few thousand here and there, as opposed to perhaps millions with a guy like Nico. And you've got the LSU gymnast who's making over $1 million. It's not fair, but that's just where we are. And I don't know what kicked off this conversation, but it's something that Caleb, you mentioned you wanted to talk about. There is not enough interest for the most part in women's sports to support NIL money going to that. And it's simple marketing, simple free market. This is not a handout. Yeah, we don't pay Jacob and Cooper Mays because we just like them. I mean, I would love to have that sort of money just throwing around because they bring value to the table. We tried the same thing with Lady Vols, and it just wasn't doable. The market wasn't there. Now, it sounds sexist for me to say this, but it's really not. Okay. Caleb has skills that make him good at what he does. He's a smart guy. I have a completely God-given gift of having a good voice, which benefits me on the radio. If I sounded like this, I might have the same information, but Caleb, it's not as marketable. So it's not a sexist thing at all to me. It's just what the market bears. And it has just been proven. I'm sorry that the NIL is not going to be a big revenue generator for the ladies out there. I mean, there are going to be exceptions to the rule, but if the Lady Vols have trouble getting a significant amount of cash in NIL and they're so well supported, then Caleb, UConn's going to have the same problem, and other schools are going to have the same problem, and South Carolina is going to have the same problem, and go on and on and on. And it's going to ultimately bear out what it is, and that is it's just not considered a wise way to spend your marketing dollars. Unfortunately, the facts are, if you're super duper good looking, a lot of the guys that make these decisions are guys, and that can go viral and you can produce a good return on investment. But Caleb, that's just the way it is. I mean, I hate to. Does that sound sexist by me?
Well,
I don't mean it.
No, and so I would just. Sorry,
sexist isn't the right word. Does it sound superficial?
But people say that a lot. But okay, here's the thing I would push back on. Is it a little superficial? Yes, but isn't sports already? Sports, people talk about, oh, it's not merit-based if it's about looks. Well, sports, your merit is your physical attributes. No matter how skilled you or I may be at a sport, we're never going to be a college basketball or college football player. We don't have the size, and we just don't have those. So we don't have the physical attributes. Isn't hotness technically a physical attribute on its own? I mean, why are we discounting hotness, and not discounting, I don't know, being able to jump 48 inches into the air? I mean, they're both just raw physical attributes, and there's nothing wrong if that's your skill. This is based on a Free Press article, by the way. I want to shout them out. You guys know the Cavender twins, Haley and Hannah Cavender. This is who this is based on. They are the highest marketable NIL female athletes. They were at Fresno State together in basketball, and they transferred to Miami this past year. They were not the best players in college basketball, in women's basketball. They're probably not top 15, top 20, but they're the most marketable. What did they do? They used their looks. They created a social media following on TikTok, Instagram, whatever, and they marketed themselves, and they got a lot of NIL money. I think that is going to be, unfortunately, how a lot of things go. An example is, and Dave, you probably remember this. Remember when Anna Kournikova was raking in more endorsements than Serena Williams which is ridiculous given how much better Serena Williams was than Anna Kournikova. And she was, and this is not college, this is the professional level.
Anna Kournikova was very average.
Yeah, very average. Just
For a
the
pro,
hottest.
for a pro.
Right. Right. Just the most attractive tennis player. And by the way, it's not just looks. Sometimes it's names. NASCAR. Earnhardt Jr. was one of the most marketable NASCAR drivers out there. Was he at any point a top 10 NASCAR driver?
That's fine. I was going to say he wasn't top 10. And you're right. He never was.
Yeah.
Kyle
and
Busch
outside of
Kyle Busch in their primes, and that's when I covered NASCAR, could drive circles around Dale Earnhardt Jr. Dale Earnhardt Jr., whether they were cheating or not, he always won restrictor plates. So either DEI was really good at it, or that restrictor plate only had to be about 1/16 of an inch bigger to allow more gas into the carburetor. And why is it that he always seemed to do well at the restrictor plates track where his father passed away, and he won the Coca-Cola 600 the year after his father passed away? I could go a whole segment on that thing, because you can hold the restrictor plates up to, I've done it. You can hold the restrictor plates up to each other and you can't see 1/16 of an inch bigger opening with your naked eye unless you lay them right on top of each other.
No, okay. I'm glad you educated me on that.
That's an easy way. That's the easiest way to cheat. You can deflate footballs all you want. The easiest way to cheat is in all of sports is a restrictor plate adjustment in NASCAR.
So Dave with the junior conspiracy theories, but I'm with you. And
not
not
even
only
conspiracy, that's just fact.
And it's not just his name, by the way. Okay, I know from talking to a lot of women that Dale Earnhardt Jr. was an attractive man to a lot of people, and so also helped his. So again, it's not merit based on that. The fact is, when you talk about marketability and advertising, which is what this is, it's never merit based. I talked with you about this before the show came on. Reggie Bush was getting all these endorsements right after he was drafted in 2006 because, look, he's a good-looking dude, okay? And you don't have to be into men to know he's a good-looking dude. Guess what? He was not worthy of all the endorsements he got. He was a solid scat back in the NFL, all-purpose back. And so I think that oh my God, I just saw that laptop.
He just had the funniest line on the message board. 1/16 of an inch. Thank you. All right. So it is mixed with NIL. Listen.
And by the way, Ronnie James.
Go ahead. I was just going to tell you, I've actually thought about putting together something that does benefit the Lady Vols. Maybe that's not a financial win for Off the Hook Sports, but I have thought about that, and I've had conversations with Maria Cornelius, who I think does a great job. But
she's I said she's incredible. I used to rely on her a lot for women's basketball coverage. She's so good.
She's so embedded. But it is, that's just a fact. And now I will say this. Candace Parker, for instance, doesn't get a shot if she's not stunningly gorgeous, but neither does Jay Billis, who's, I don't know that he's stunningly gorgeous, but he's a good-looking guy back in the day. And as it turns out, Candace Parker's phenomenal. Phenomenal. She's one of the best. Other than Barkley, I think she's as good as there is. I think she's better than Shaq.
Yeah, that question is, how did Shaq ever get that job? Because he's horrible.
Yeah, he mumbles a lot. Now, how about this? And I don't want this to sound catty or mean, but Kara Lawson is not stunning. And I think she got a job in broadcasting because she was just phenomenal. She's great at play-by-play, at color commentating as well. So there are exceptions to the rule. But I just think for the most part, when the NIL money, when you're talking about what people want to spend, the ESPNs and the broadcasters of the world, they have to at least come across as, if you want to use the word woke or whatever word you want to use, but they have to come across as open-minded to use women. So that's probably what gives Candace Parker and the Kara Lawsons the shot in the first place. Turns out they were awesome, and they're as good as most men out there, if not better. But to get those NIL deals, there's not nobody knows if Kroger's turns down the Lady Vols. You see what I'm saying? You know, if ESPN has just got a bunch of white dudes that are up there, but you don't know if Kroger's turned down the Lady Vols because they find them less marketable than spending money on Nico.
And also, hotness is a factor. And yes, it's a bigger factor with women. Like you said, it's a factor with men. But there are other things. I'm sure there's probably a non-binary, not very attractive, very good women's basketball player that if she played, if that person played their cards right, would be great on social media. There's a market for that on social media. If you play your cards right, you got to find a way to be a little more creative with it. And guess what? If you do that, you'll probably become a draw if you know what you're doing. That's how life and advertisement works. Not everybody in advertising is the most attractive person. Heck, I mean, Peyton Manning isn't, and he's in every commercial in the world because he's got talents elsewhere.
That's a really good point. Smoky Mountain Red said, I still want to know how Sheldon Williams landed her, though. Talking about
because Candace Parker was found out later in life she wasn't really into men, so she didn't understand taste, because she was also, for those who don't remember, she was also with Stanley Asumnu. Who remembers that one?
There is not a meaner way to throw Sheldon Williams under the bus. So, I mean, poor Sheldon Williams with his eyes on the side of his head. Yes. So basically what you're saying is because she did not understand men whatsoever that she found Sheldon Williams attractive. That's what you're saying.
Yes. She thought societal norms told her that she should find Sheldon Williams attractive. So
this has been a special show. We'll leave you on that note. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Have a fantastic day, weekend, whenever it might be. And I tell you what, Caleb's got you for next week. I'm going to try a little vacay, but I will be doing the Celebrate 98 series. So looking forward to that. Travis Stevens coming up. Please turn your notifications on. We appreciate that. Like a stanza. I turn them back. All right. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.